You may have found yourself wondering, how is it possible? How is it that those whom the world deems unqualified, those who lack refinement, eloquence, or education, seem to rise to heights of prosperity, while the clever, the analytical, the informed struggle? It is not a mistake, it is not injustice, it is law. There is a strange advantage in not knowing too much. You see, the mind that is overburdened with intellect, with logic, with the compulsive need to figure it all out, has placed 1,000 guards at the gate of imagination. But the man who does not argue, who accepts, who dares to believe without knowing how, he is the one who moves mountains. The so-called dumb man has this power. He believes easily. He says, I will be rich. And because he does not burden that statement with a dozen doubts, he enters the state. He does not delay himself with calculations, probabilities, or comparisons. He assumes an assumption, when persisted in, hardens into fact. It is not the clever who succeed in the world. It is the man who lives in the end. He may not articulate the law. He may not understand that what he imagines creates reality. But if he assumes with feeling, if he sleeps in the conviction of being rich, healthy, successful, his world must bend to that inner state. The intellect, for all its sharpness, often becomes the servant of fear. It analyzes the past, projects failure into the future, and remains locked in doubt. But the subconscious does not respond to what you think. It responds to what you feel is true. So the so-called fool who walks boldly into a dream, unafraid, unshaken, is wiser than the genius who cannot believe. He enters the kingdom of heaven, which is not a place, but a state of consciousness, by simply assuming he is already there. All things exist now. The only difference between wealth and poverty, success and failure, is the state you occupy, and the dumb man often enters the state with no resistance, because he has no inner voices telling him, you can't. Let not your cleverness be your cage. Let not your logic chain you to the facts of the present. Facts change, but the feeling assumed now is the seed of the fact to come. If you desire to rise, then be as the child, as the simple man. Do not ask how. Assume the end. Feel it real. And let the law fulfill itself in ways you cannot yet imagine. It is a grave misunderstanding of life to believe that intellect is the source of wealth. The world will tell you that you must know more, study harder, accumulate degrees, certifications, strategies, formulas, and then maybe you will earn the right to abundance. But this belief is rooted in the illusion of cause and effect. It is a false idol worshipped by the mind that cannot see beyond appearances. The truth is far simpler and far more powerful. Wealth is not the result of cleverness, it is the result of assumption. The man who becomes wealthy is not always the man who knows the most, but the one who dares to assume that he is wealthy. The one who closes his eyes and inwardly accepts the idea of himself as rich, he is the one who moves the forces that shape his world. This assumption, though invisible to the outer eye, is a cause more potent than all the clever strategies man may conjure. For the outer world is but a reflection of the inner state, and the inner state is not built by logic. It is built by belief. Let us suppose two men stand at the same place in life. One is highly educated, wise by the standards of the world. He understands economics, business, politics, and every theory of success. The other man has none of this. He does not even understand how things work in the world of money. But this second man believes without resistance that he will be rich. He does not ask how. He simply accepts the idea and lives from it. He thinks from the end. He sees himself living in the house he desires, wearing the clothes, experiencing the freedom. He enjoys it now, in imagination. And the other man, he is too clever for that. He says, but how? How can I afford it? What is the strategy? Where is the opportunity? Let me analyze. And so he never moves. For his mind is trapped in a loop of reasoning that denies the possibility already available within. The subconscious mind is the womb of creation. It receives impressions, nurtures them, and brings them forth into physical form. But it does not respond to cleverness. It does not obey intellect. It responds only to what is accepted as true. So if a man is clever, but inwardly doubts, he receives according to the doubt. But if another is simple in mind, but accepts with full faith the feeling of being rich, the subconscious makes it so. You do not become rich by figuring it out. You become rich by being rich in feeling. And here is the key. You cannot fake the feeling with words alone. You must persuade yourself inwardly through repetition, through immersion, through imagining again and again that you are already that which you desire to be. When this inner conviction is strong, it overpowers the seeming facts of the outer world. This is why many so-called dumb people seem to succeed without the struggle. It is not because they are actually unintelligent, it is because they do not complicate things. They do not place 1,000 mental hurdles between themselves and the dream. They simply believe. They assume. And they move boldly. They speak as though it is already done. They act in confidence, not because they see the evidence, but because they have accepted the state. You may say, but what about hard work? Yes, effort has its place, but not as the cause. The cause is always the state of being. If a man works hard in a state of poverty, he will only grind himself deeper into that state. But if he works or even does very little in a state of wealth, wealth must appear. The world will show him the means. The connections will come, the ideas will be born. But they will come after the state is assumed, not before. This is not magic, this is law. Everything proceeds from consciousness. What you are inwardly aware of being, you become in your world. You attract what you are conscious of already having. Not what you wish for in some distant future, but what you claim as yours now. So let the cleverness be still. Let the questioning cease, and let the feeling rise. Ask yourself not how will it come, but rather, what would I feel like if I were already wealthy? And then dare to feel it real. Dwell in it, make it your home, speak from it, think from it, walk through the world, wearing the invisible garment of wealth, not as a wish, but as a fact. You are not what the world tells you, you are what you accept as true. And wealth is not earned by merit, by logic, or by education. It is received by the man who dares to believe he already has it. This is why the dumb man may make more money than you. Not because he is better, not because he is luckier, but because he has entered the state without resistance. And what you accept without resistance, your world must reflect. There is an unseen strength in the man who doesn't overthink. A certain power lies in the one who acts without hesitation, who doesn't interfere with his desire by picking it apart with doubt. He does not struggle to believe, he simply hears the idea, accepts it, and moves forward as though it were already true. And that is precisely why so many people who seem unqualified or less intelligent find themselves prospering. They do not get in their own way. When a man receives a desire, it is not random, it is not wishful thinking, it is life calling him into a new state. The desire itself is the seed of fulfillment. But what happens with most people? They receive the desire and then immediately begin to question it. How will I do this? Do I even deserve it? Am I good enough? What if I fail? In those moments they take the seed of desire and bury it under layers of doubt and logic. But there are others, men and women, who, though the world may call them dumb, are inwardly rich in faith. They do not dissect the process, they do not analyze the mechanics. When they want something, they say, "I'll have it," and they move toward it with calm confidence. Not because they know how, but because they trust. That trust, that unshaken belief, is what causes the unseen to become seen. The one who is too clever often becomes paralyzed by his cleverness. He plays both sides of the game in his mind. He dreams, and then he doubts. He desires, and then he dissects. He imagines, and then he cancels it out with cold facts. His intellect becomes the enemy of his faith. He demands proof before he will commit to the vision. But proof never comes before belief. Belief is the cause, not the result. The man who accepts a desire and allows it to dwell in him without resistance is already ahead. He walks in imagination, seeing the end, hearing the applause, counting the money, living in the result. His mind is not cluttered with 1,000 what-ifs. He trusts the unseen process of life. He may not have read books on manifestation or studied the subconscious, but he knows something deeper. When he believes, things move. This kind of belief is not shallow. It is not pretending. It is a quiet, settled confidence. It is a kind of knowing that doesn't need to shout. It walks with certainty. And this is why such people appear to have luck. But it is not luck, it is law. They are not lucky, they are clear. Clear in assumption, clear in emotion, clear in their acceptance of the end. And clarity, when mixed with feeling, becomes creation. When you do not interfere with your desire, it unfolds naturally. You don't need to know how. You don't need to have every detail in place. The plan is already written in the unseen. Your job is to enter the feeling of it being done. That's all. To assume the mood of fulfillment. To carry yourself as one who already has what they seek. This is not arrogance. It is faith. It is alignment with the invisible pattern that responds to your state of being. So often, the so-called dumb man is simply a man with less mental noise. He's not constantly at war with himself. He's not delaying the dream with questions. He hears an opportunity, and he says yes. He sees a path, and he walks it. He's not busy measuring the distance between where he is and where he wants to be. He just goes. And that movement, inner movement toward the goal, causes the path to open. It's the silent choice that makes the difference. The choice to tea without needing permission. The choice to feel rich, even if the bank account says otherwise. The choice to act as if it were already so. These are not small acts, these are the creative acts of the soul. And those who do this, those who believe simply and act boldly, are the ones who change their world. There is wisdom in simplicity. There is power in straightforward belief. When you stop needing all the answers, the answer comes. When you stop trying to figure it out, the way is revealed. The desire leads you, not the plan. The feeling creates the form, not the logic. That's why a man who doesn't overthink can often manifest faster than the one who studies every principle. He is not trapped in theories. He is not debating whether he deserves it. He has not built mental walls around his dream. He just assumes, and that assumption held without resistance changes everything. So don't envy the so-called simple man who makes more money. Learn from him. See how he believes without apology. Watch how he acts without over-questioning. Witness how he carries the feeling of success before it shows up. That is not foolishness. That is the kind of faith that moves mountains. When you stop interrupting your dream with doubt, it grows. When you stop explaining why it can't happen, it begins to happen. The less you interfere, the more life can move. The one who believes easily, without overthinking, without stopping to consult the facts, is the one who wins. Not because of chance, but because he has mastered the most important skill. He does not argue with the dream. He simply accepts it as already done. The greatest illusion of this world is the idea that logic rules, that reason, numbers, facts, and intellect hold the highest power in shaping our reality. But look closely, and you'll see something entirely different. You'll see people who do all the right things, study hard, follow every instruction, obey every rule, and still struggle to move forward. While others who seem to ignore the rules completely rise with speed and ease. Because imagination and conviction will always outrank logic and reason. There is a world beyond facts, a world not seen by the eye but felt by the soul. That world is where all things are first created. What you imagine when mixed with emotion and belief becomes a blueprint in the unseen. Hold that blueprint long enough, and it must take form in the visible. This is the law. You might think reason will help you get there, but reason only deals with what already is. It analyzes the present, it compares the past, and it measures what is visible. It cannot create what has never been seen. It cannot stretch into the impossible. Only imagination can do that. Only imagination has the boldness to reach beyond the known and pull something brand new into being. You cannot reason your way into a new life, you must imagine your way in. The man who constantly needs proof before belief, who waits for the facts to line up before he feels successful or safe or worthy, he delays the entire process. He is like a farmer who waits for the harvest before he plants the seed, and then wonders why nothing ever grows. Imagination does not need permission. It does not need validation. It only needs acceptance. The man who dares to feel himself already living the life he wants, who closes his eyes and experiences the success inwardly, who walks through the world in a mood of fulfillment, that man activates something deeper than logic. He taps into the creative force of the universe, and that force does not ask questions. It simply reflects. This is why someone who seems less educated, less informed, even less intelligent by worldly standards, can manifest riches, freedom, and success faster than someone with all the knowledge in the world. Because imagination moves by faith, and faith is faster than facts. The moment you accept something as real in your inner world, the wheels begin turning in the outer world. Now let me be clear, this isn't about avoiding reality or pretending things don't exist. It's about knowing that reality is not final. Reality is only a reflection of your inner state. Change the state, and the reflection must change. And the fastest way to shift your inner state is not through thinking harder. It's through imagining differently and feeling your way into that new scene as if it were already happening. Reason may say, you can't do that. You don't have the money. You're too old, it's too late. Imagination says, I already have it. It is mine now. I am it. Reason keeps score. Imagination keeps truth. Reason points to the facts of lack, struggle, and delay. Imagination points to the truth of your inner power, your ability to assume a new identity and live from that assumption. And what about conviction? Conviction is not loud. It's not about forcing your way through. Conviction is quiet, steady, unshakable knowing. It is the feeling that says, this is mine, even if nothing around you agrees. Conviction doesn't need backup. It doesn't need applause. It only needs to be felt deeply. When a man is convinced, the world moves around him. He no longer reacts to the outside. He acts from the inside, and because he is no longer moved by facts, the facts begin to shift. That is the strange irony of life. Once you stop needing the evidence to feel something, the evidence begins to show up. The man who walks in imagination, who builds the scene in detail and lives within it, is practicing the highest form of creation. He is aligning himself with the eternal law, that what you are conscious of being and feeling, you become. Not what you think about, not what you wish for, but what you feel yourself to already be. So if you are reasoning and thinking and calculating and still getting nowhere, pause, close your eyes, ask yourself, what would I feel like if it were already done? What would change in my mood, in my posture, in my tone? And then begin to live in that mood. Don't wait for the world to agree with you. Let your conviction lead. The world follows in a movement. It always has. The man who understands this does not debate. He imagines, he feels, and he moves with the certainty that what is real inwardly will become real outwardly. This is not fantasy. This is not escape. This is the hidden law behind every success you see. The people you admire may not tell you this, but they have, consciously or unconsciously, imagined their way into that life. You can too, but you must dare to let go of needing all the answers. You must let your imagination lead. And when you do, when you accept the power of inner vision over outer evidence, life begins to rearrange itself in ways you could never have reasoned into existence. The outer world is not separate from you. It may look like it's out there, independent, solid, and unchangeable, but it is nothing more than a mirror. And that mirror reflects not what you say you want, not what you hope for, but what you are conscious of being. That is the great key. Your world reflects your consciousness, and consciousness is always determined by your inner state. This is why people who appear to be less educated or less aware of all the so-called rules of success often find themselves succeeding more quickly. They don't second-guess the mirror. They don't question whether it will reflect back what they believe. They simply assume, and the world, like a faithful servant, returns that assumption in form. You are not looking at a fixed reality. You are looking at the out-pictured version of your own assumptions. Everything you believe to be true about yourself is quietly shaping what you see, who you meet, and what you experience. If you're conscious of being poor, no matter how hard you work, something will always pull you back to that state, because you're still being poor on the inside. If you're conscious of being unlucky, life will keep reflecting back little inconveniences and closed doors, because that's the film you've loaded into the projector. But change the film, change the inner state, and the picture must change. What you assume, you become, and the beauty of this truth is that you can begin right now. You can assume any new identity, any new state of being, and hold that assumption in consciousness until the world has no choice but to rearrange itself, to reflect it. You do not need permission to do this. You do not need a diploma or a green light from anyone. The power is already in you, and you are using it every day whether you realize it or not. Think about it like this. When you walk up to a mirror and smile, the reflection smiles back. You don't have to force the mirror to smile. You don't have to convince it or beg it. It simply does what it was designed to do. Now apply this truth to life itself. If your inner state is one of confidence, peace, and wealth, your world will echo that. If your inner state is filled with fear, scarcity, or self-doubt, life will mirror that as well. Not to punish you, but to show you what you're being. This is not meant to scare you, it's meant to awaken you. Because once you realize that the world is your mirror, you stop trying to fix things out there. You stop blaming others, you stop chasing shadows, and instead you go to the only place that truly matters, within. You start adjusting the inner state. You start saying, if I want more love, I must feel myself to be loved. If I want more wealth, I must feel myself to be wealthy. If I want freedom, I must feel free now. It may sound simple, and that's because it is. But it is also powerful beyond belief. Your assumption is your prayer. Your belief is your creation. The world bends itself to the feeling you consistently return to. Not once, not when you're in the mood, but what you dwell in. If you're always saying, things never work out for me, that becomes your truth. Not because the world is cruel, but because you've accepted that state as who you are. You must stop waiting for the world to change before you allow yourself to feel different. That is backward. That is like looking into the mirror and saying, I'll smile after the reflection smiles. But the mirror only reflects you. The world only reflects your state. Now what does this mean in practical terms? It means you don't have to beg for better circumstances. You don't have to chase or strive or hustle in fear. You simply have to change what you are being. Begin to feel the new mood. Begin to carry yourself as if the thing were already done. Walk through your day from the place of having. Let the new state become so natural to you that it feels like home. You're not pretending, you're creating. There's a difference. Pretending is shallow, it fades quickly. But assuming a new state with feeling and repetition embeds it deep in the subconscious. And once it takes root there, it must express itself in your outer world. This is why consciousness of wealth, not money itself, creates money. This is why consciousness of love, not someone else's approval, creates lasting relationships. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. That is the law. And you are never stuck because you can shift states at any time. You can wake up in lack and go to bed in abundance simply by what you accept as true. No one else even has to know what you're doing. It's quiet. It's inward. It's real. It's powerful. So ask yourself now, not what do I want, but what am I being? What am I constantly affirming to myself by my inner speech, by my emotional reactions, by the thoughts I entertain when no one is watching? Because those are the seed. And your world, tomorrow or next week or next month, will be the harvest. The world reflects you. Always has. Always will. It can only give back what you have accepted inwardly as true. Change the acceptance, change the mirror, change your life. All four speeches point toward one timeless, unshakable truth. You are the operant power, not your intellect, not your background, not your circumstances, but your inner state, your assumption, your conviction, your feeling of already being what you desire to be. You have seen how those labeled less intelligent often succeed, not because they are lucky or special, but because they do not interfere with their belief. They move without resistance. They assume without doubt. They enter the state and the world follows. You've come to understand that imagination is the gateway, not logic. Logic keeps you where you are. Imagination sets you free. What you dare to feel inwardly becomes the pattern your outer world must obey. And above all, you've been reminded that life mirrors you. Always. It does not reflect what you hope for or even what you work toward. It reflects what you are, not in name, not in talk, but in state of being. So now the question returns to you not, how can I make more money? Or how can I succeed? But who am I being right now? And the moment you answer that question consciously, with intention and with feeling, the mirror of life will respond, as it always does, with perfect reflection.